Pokemon killers, a phrase we've all heard many times with both good and bad connotations associated to it. Some will say the game is great and that they hope it becomes a Pokemon killer, whilst others, especially some of the out-of-touch journalist types, will go on about failed Pokemon killers and games that couldn't kill Pokemon. In general, there's always a lot of discussion around the death of Pokemon and a new monster taming game taking the throne, but realistically, is this achievable? Do we even really want this? And does attributing the Pokemon killer label do even more harm than good to a game than the Pokemon clone label? We're going to talk about all of this and more, so stay tuned. Okay, so particularly with Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX finally being launched and it being pretty prominent, we have seen a lot of attention being put on some older monster taming franchises, and that lingering Pokemon killer narrative always seems to be attributed with these types of games, especially back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Now, the term Pokemon killer really made a comeback when Temtem dropped in early access, and even when Kindred Fates was doing its Kickstarter campaign. I vividly remember people talking about Temtem both positively and negatively with this Pokemon killer narrative in tow. I've seen people accuse Temtem of being marketed as a Pokemon killer and failing to do so, since its active player base is a lot lower than it once was, and the fact that it did not sell as much as Pokemon's worst selling game. But to me, I have not seen a single spot where Temtem marketed itself as a Pokemon killer, but rather people attributing this label to it because of the many similarities between it and Pokemon. I also vividly remember people going on about various indie games and wanting them to overthrow the giant, almost like a legendary underdog story. Now, this expectation for any indie or even AAA studio to come into and take over a genre where Pokemon has had a monopoly over 20 years is asking a lot. Even if a monster taming game came along and outsold a Pokemon game, Pokemon is far more than just a gaming franchise. You've got merchandise, mobile apps, spin-offs, clothing, a huge amount of brand recognition, etc. So even if in this case, Pokemon would still be likely to keep doing what it's doing with little worry. Now that said, we're going to talk about the ramifications of expecting and putting this label on monster taming games in a second, but for now, do we even want a monster taming franchise to reach the level of financial success that Pokemon has acquired? I don't think it's a very controversial take to say that in general, when businesses get too big and gain a monopoly on something, they tend to really cut back on caring about their customers in favor of making money. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money for something that you do, of course, but there's definitely a line that a lot of game companies have crossed in the past. Look at games that are universally condemned, like 90% of all sports games, a lot of popular shooters and stuff like that, for rehashing the exact same thing every year with minor changes. I don't think Pokemon has gotten as bad as some of these games with these egregious microtransactions, but we are definitely seeing a shift to premium priced games with less content in general, and I think that it'll only continue to worsen as the company realizes that they can pretty much do less and get more. So this is a trend with mega corporations in general in any sort of industry, and as much as I want to say, well, none of the monster taming devs or publishers would ever do that, I think getting to that astronomically big size creates that sort of investor demand and all that crap that eventually leads to it. Does this justify it? No, absolutely not. Gaming in many ways is also an art form and a form of entertainment, and as gamers who pay, we deserve what we pay for. But regardless of that, whether or not I think something should or shouldn't happen doesn't mean it will or won't. So while I want to see all the monster taming games that I cover be super successful, I don't think I need any of them to become a $90 billion franchise. You're all allowed to make, I don't know, $10 billion each. But seriously, I want to reiterate that I'm not saying I don't want these games to come out and perform even better than Pokemon games. Imagine that. That would be amazing. I think that would be awesome. And the day that one of our Mon games outsells even Pokemon's lowest sold games will be a huge milestone for the genre. But all I'm saying is that I think to be big enough to kill Pokemon, which essentially implies kicking it out of relevancy, we're talking massive here. And yeah, some franchises will still remain modest in spite of all of that success, but I'm personally tired of centralization within the genre and would prefer many successful games rather than one mega influence. Okay, so finally, let's take a second to talk about whether or not the Pokemon killer narrative is actually harmful to these games. We talk a lot about the term Pokemon clone and its ramifications on the genre, but this is the first time I've made a dedicated video to Pokemon killers. Now, this is my opinion, and you can agree or disagree below in the comments, but I do think it's harmful. On one end, you have the people with good intentions for that specific game wanting success for it, but the issue is that calling a game a Pokemon killer creates a heavy burden for the game in question and a crazy bar for it to reach. It also seems to be a very combative term, which could also cause a lot of opposition just based off of the word alone. The inevitable comparisons also end up doing the opposite as well. You know, you end up with people being like, oh, let's pick out and exaggerate the smallest flaws to own this game and prove that Pokemon is better, whilst also ignoring any flaws about Pokemon that this game actually circumvents. Stuff like that. My buddy Erroll made a really good article about this. He's one of the good guys in terms of journalists and focuses quite heavily on our genre, so definitely check it out. I actually made a statement there, so it'll be linked below, but I don't think I'm the only one who feels that calling something a Pokemon killer is expecting too much and setting up the game for failure. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I really do value your opinions when it comes to stuff like this, and as usual, would love to hear your thoughts. If you're a fan of the genre, definitely subscribe to my channel. We put out monster taming videos every single day. You can also follow me on Twitter, GymLeaderEd. Check out my Discord, all links below. Special thanks to our patrons, especially our mythical backers, Jim Hamilton and StealCase. See you guys next time.